Help support the show by joining the Patreon or becoming a YouTube member. Also, hit that like button and subscribe if you want more Browns-focused content. All right, so I've been trying to get new voices. You know, there's always an opportunity to get new voices to talk to, bring to the channel about teams that we're very familiar with. And one of these teams that we're familiar with is the Baltimore Ravens. There's a lot of opinions about the Baltimore Ravens. You guys are one of those teams that are good enough, certainly, to be very relevant, but that success hasn't led to the ultimate success. So that relevance is leading to a lot of scrutiny about where you guys are. I kind of feel like the Ravens and like the Cleveland Cavaliers are in two sports are kind of in like similar places where people are like, yeah, they'll make the playoffs, but what are they going to do? Right. How is it being in that place? Because, you know, as a Browns fan or Browns fans, we can look at that and kind of be jealous of like, oh, well, they're always winning 13 games. You know, they're winning the division. I would love to have those problems that Baltimore has, but running up against that kind of a wall has to be its own level of stressful, right?
Oh, for sure. And first and foremost, appreciate you for having me on, Quincy. It's good to reciprocate. I know you came on my channel several months back, and I look forward to, I'm sure, getting back doing this once the season hits. But yeah, it's a good problem to have. First, I think we can probably all agree on that. Just when you look at the expectations that are sky high, but with those come this level of scrutiny that, as somebody that's covered this team closely for the last several years, I don't think it's ever been this magnified. And hey, deservedly so. When you lose in the divisional round the way they did in heartbreak fashion, given the way that this roster was constructed, I don't even care if they had to go on the road as early as the divisional round. I mean, they were expected to compete for a Super Bowl title last year, the year prior to that. And really, ever since Lamar kind of came onto the scene after 2019, I don't think anybody expected them to come out the way they did in 2019. But this has been a level of pressure that's been building year after year after year since really 2020. You can take 21 and 22 out, I guess, because of how much Lamar was unavailable down the second half stretches of those seasons. But you get it. I mean, you're in the division. You cover this Cleveland Browns team, and so while it might be different expectations in your part of the world, it's equally as I would say, what's the right word? It's equally as paid attention to around the league. And so right now they find themselves in a position where the Super Bowl or bust narrative has been kind of addressed in recent weeks by John Harbaugh. He's taken a big stance against it. I get why that's the case, because it kind of comes across as, well, first of all, there's negative connotations written to all of it. And then two, it's almost like, well, okay, if it's the bust side of things and we come up short, then is everything a waste? Like our accomplishments, accolades, statistics, everything else that goes into that, is that all for naught? And so I hear why he went in that direction, but clearly Super Bowl or bust is more about this team is expected to contend for a title, and anything short of that at this point in the Lamar era will be viewed as a colossal disappointment.
Yeah, and it's like you can fight against it all you want. Once the expectation, once you have an MVP candidate at quarterback, a routine one, that's just where your expectations are always going to be. And what I saw last year was interesting, right? Because I thought that was the first year you truly saw the lack of postseason success for the Ravens start to affect Lamar Jackson and how he's viewed, or how he's received by voting members in the media, because he got that first team All-Pro, didn't get the MVP. They gave it to Josh Allen. And that felt like, you know, there are certain times players get to a amount of awards that they've earned, but people are like, oh, well, look at the other guys who have had 3 MVPs. They all have Super Bowl rings, right? And then that ends up really affecting Lamar, where it's like, oh, well, now he can't win that award because of it. And like, I mean, it's always been hard in the public eye for Lamar to be able to be appreciated, right? It's always been a battle for his greatness to be appreciated. But now more so than ever, I mean, there's like a legitimate thing that you can point to with him. And I don't think the last 2 years were on him as much as people make it out to be, but it's just one of those things that follows him. Do you see that when you watch the Ravens kind of prepare for this season and like watch Lamar's demeanor over the years, that this is something that he is aware of, and like is this narrative real to Lamar, right? Because it's one thing for it to be real to fans, but when it does become real to players, that's when things start to get even weirder, right? Like,
I think he sees everything. I think he
yeah.
sees, reads everything, whether it's showing up on his desk, so to speak, with a friend, showing him a tweet or throwing over an Instagram story, whatever it might be, or him himself scrolling in his free time. I mean, the guy kind of comes and goes on social media. He goes through these funny spurts where he's super like clap backish, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
on X, especially when the Nick Wrights of the world maybe can be loud with their takes, and Chris Sims in past years. So he does come and go, and he'll have these Twitter sprees every once in a while. But I think that's enough to know and assume that he sees a lot of this. He's motivated by it. We all remember the Mike Flores comment, a Mike
Mm-hmm.
Florist, whatever that was from years ago, when Mike Florio had a lot to say about Lamar and his MVP candidacy, or at the time, I believe it was how they would stack up against the 49ers. Well, we all remember how that game went for the Ravens. They absolutely demolished them on a primetime stage. So, yeah, I think that there's a universal understanding internally in that building of the narrative that has constantly been, and really the goalpost moving that has often followed Lamar, the universal underappreciation in a sense outside of Baltimore. And that's slightly hyperbolic. There's a lot of people that have immense appreciation for the player that he has evolved
Mm-hmm.
into, for the passer that he's become. And so I hate to sit here with like rose colored glass or like blinders on and say everybody outside the state of Maryland underappreciates Lamar. That's just wrong.
Yeah.
That's not true. And I think some Ravens fans, just with their diehard goggles on, and God bless them, they're some of the best people that I've ever met in my life. But sometimes they can't see through that. They can't see through
Mm-hmm.
the disrespect that he's really had to deal with and faced since the moment he came into the league. And as I'm sure you followed his career prior to that, he's faced it his entire football career, both collegiate and professionally. So I get that. They're diehard. They should be. They love the guy. They'll go to the end of the earth to protect him, to support him, and to get after his critics. But at the end of the day, there is still a select few, maybe the old guard, if you will, that stylistically, aesthetically can't get behind what he's been able to do. And maybe that's just their love for the prototypical quarterback. I don't know, the pocket
Mm-hmm.
passing quarterback. That's not who Lamar is. But one thing that he has absolutely proven time and time again is that longevity is on his side with the way that he plays. Certainly that's going to help with Derrick Henry being here for the next couple of years at least. And I think that they actually help each other out in that longevity department, right? Derrick's going to extend Lamar's and vice versa, because that's what having each other and their presence does for their game. So, I'm kind of going on a long-winded spree with your question, but I think Lamar's in this point where he has such a command for this offense. He's got the best skill set, around him that he's ever had before at his disposal. Todd Monken is back. They return literally every single starter offensively besides one, who is one of the most penalized players along the offensive line, in Patrick McCary. So there's a lot to like about where he's dealing with. It's just, boy, is it a lot to be Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, it's kind of like being Kevin Durant, right? Like it's like this. On one hand, you got people who really go hard for you, and on the other hand, you have people who like select folk who just like won't let you get anything in, right? But let's kind of switch gears here. Isaiah Likely, there was an injury that popped up with him during camp. Well, what's going on with Likely and just the overall injury situation with Baltimore right now?
He got a minor foot fracture. So
Mm,
this was last week. He tweeted out, I think at the end of last week, might have been Thursday or Friday, that he was on the other side of it, and that essentially the recovery starts now. If you look into foot fractures and the grades along the way, what he has is a 6 to 8 week time frame. So at the time of that procedure, that would have put him around week one. So to me, while the team hasn't come out and said this, why would they from a game and shit standpoint? I can't imagine that he's going to be available week one, and I'd be surprised if the Browns have to prepare for him in week two, to be honest with you, which is the Ravens home opener, as you guys probably know. So, look, they've never been more built to withstand this kind of early blow. I think
Hmm.
they have one of the deepest tight end rooms in the entire league. Maybe folks that aren't familiar with Charlie Kohler will get to know him a little bit as the backup to Mark Andrews through the first couple weeks. But also, if Isaiah can go week one and the recovery timetable is there, why force him? Like, we all know that practice speed's a whole lot different than game speed, and he won't have played in a regular season game speed type of situation since January when he is ready to go. So I'm expecting the ramp up period to be gradual. I'm not expecting him until maybe a month into the season. I'm not a doctor. You always got to throw that in there. And the team obviously hasn't shared what their hopes are for him. Bottom line is he's going to a contract year. He's super motivated. I expect him to be extended and paid handsomely, top 10 tight end money, even though the numbers haven't bared that out simply because of Mark Andrews being in the same tight end room. I think if you had Isaiah Likely on a slew of other teams, I might even say double digit other teams around the league, he'd probably be a household name.
Hmm.
For those of you who haven't followed his career, he was a 2022 fourth rounder out of Coastal Carolina, and he has come in and just lit it up when he's given the opportunity to. He's a tight end. I should say he's a wide receiver in a tight end's body. He's rangy. He and Lamar off script are exceptional. He's got a great pair of hands, good field vision, good yak. He's a lot of fun. And I would suspect that from an extension standpoint, this is just a small little setback. And I don't think he's going to affect their dealings negotiation wise at all.
All right. So another area of the team where you guys are having a little bit of turnover from is kicker, right? For years it was Justin
Oh,
Tucker. You guys are done with the Justin Tucker era. You guys are moving over. I forget what the guy you're moving on from's name is. I know he has a name that people have already made into a chant. So it's probably going to work out there. But just how is that transition going from somebody, holding down the fort there for over a decade and now going to a new kicker there? Like, are you guys concerned about falling in to the familiar kind of roulette of kickers that NFL teams tend to do once they lose their guy there? I mean, we're living through it right now in Cleveland where it's like every other year it's a new kicker.
yeah. It's a tough life to live. I keep telling everybody that from a Justin Tucker standpoint, the years of being a sure thing, like, yeah, I'm gonna go take a quick little leak, a leak break in between commercials or, in between kicks, whatever it is, whether it's field goals or extra points, that's no longer. You're gonna be holding your piss,
Mm-hmm.
because it's not a sure thing. And to answer your question, it's Tyler Loop. He was a day three,
Mm-hmm.
sixth round pick back in April out of Arizona. I think he spent 4 or 5 years there. We had his special teams coach on our show earlier in the offseason. Danny Gonzalez, he's got some collegiate head coaching experience. Now he's the defensive coordinator at Arizona. But I thought he was really interesting because he kind of gave some context to some of the struggles last year, some of the inconsistencies for Tyler. He's got a huge leg. I mean, the guy converted from 63 and he's already been converting from 60 plus in practice. And we're 24 hours removed at the time of this taping from an open stadium practice, the annual open stadium practice, and he was perfect, 11 for 11. Now, it's been a roller coaster, kind of what you're alluding to. It's been a little bit of a carousel or a little bit of a roller coaster throughout OTAs, mandatory minicamp, and the start of camp. And it's based on consistency. I'm sure a lot of it has to do with maybe there's some pressure involved there, maybe some technique, some adjustments being made by the kicking consultant in Baltimore, Randy Brown, who handpicked Tyler. But I'm expecting a player just like any other rookie to go take his lumps early. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Justin Tucker and the way that it ended, first of all, that's a conversation for another day. I mean, you talk about an abrupt ending to a player that's really struggled over the last
Mm-hmm.
couple of years, but turned it on. People forget about this. He turned it on late last year, and you just kind of wonder, had everything off the field not unfolded the way that it did, would he have sort of had a resurgent upcoming season? Now, obviously, that's neither here nor there. Now they turn really the keys over to a rookie. They just cut the undrafted player out of Wyoming, John Hoyland. So it's going to be Tyler Loop,
Mm-hmm.
barring something unforeseen. Then they'd really be scrambling over the next month or so. Um, but yeah, Quincy, the days of it being, which is really going to make AFC North play, I think in particular, that much more interesting because we know how many games tend to be decided by field goals and how many games Justin Tucker's typically good for winning on a yearly basis. I mean, usually it's one or two. So
The advantage of being able to know that if you have like 45 seconds left on the clock and one timeout, all you got to do is get to like the 40, right? Like, like you're pretty good. Like you can get away with getting at the 50 indoors, right? When Justin was in his prime.
Just ask Detroit about that.
Yeah, I remember watching that game, thinking Baltimore just gets away with everything.
Right.
But yeah, so I want to settle in on this kicker conversation, right? Because for people who've watched my channel for a while, I'm very on the side of anti-drafting a kicker. And it's not because I don't think kickers are important or I don't see the value. I just think NFL teams have proven that they are awful at evaluating the transition, right? There is something about that transition that is difficult and makes it so that like a lot of times you draft the kicker, the guy doesn't stick that first team. And so you're drafting him to get experience for somebody else who's going to get a successful kicker down the line. I think I look back at it, there's like what, 2 or 3 kickers right now who have played past their rookie contract and have gotten an extension that were drafted with the team. I think one was like Mason Crosby. This is like a couple of years ago did this. And I think now like Zach McPherson and whoever the Bills kicker is, right? So it's like, I get the urge to draft a kicker. Do you think, you mentioned that Baltimore has like a kicking consultant who handpicked them. Does that give you more confidence in that working out and your ability to scout these guys? Like, how do you feel? Because Justin Tucker's been there, but you've seen these other guys they brought in at camp, right? Like Cairo Santos, I think he was the guy you guys always used to bring in for a while. How do you feel about the Ravens' ability to just evaluate the position and identify up and coming young kickers based on like who they brought in during the Tucker era to kind of give Tucker a break during camp?
I don't know if I can have any confidence because this is a completely new hierarchy in a sense. Like John Harbaugh began in 2008. I don't know if this, and he's a longtime assistant to John, longtime special teams consultant. He's a guru. His name's Randy Brown. And I believe his son's on the Eagles staff, if I'm not mistaken. But Jerry Rosberg was the special teams guru that found Justin Tucker, undrafted out of Texas, years ago. Matter of fact, it was 2012 because that was his rookie season and ended up winning the Super Bowl, and the rest is history. But Jerry's no longer with the organization, and he hasn't been for quite some time. So I don't know how I can sit here and tell you that based on track record, even though those that were directly involved and responsible for said track record, they're not here. So how can I sit here and be like, yeah, I mean, I'm unwaveringly confident about Tyler Loop and their process. All I can say is that Randy Brown is revered, he's respected, and he's proven. So for him to handpick Tyler, and he spent months throughout the pre-draft process, traveling the country, meeting with these players, evaluating, analyzing, talking, networking, you name it. And so I'm sure no stone went unturned. But again, I just don't know what ground I have to stand on to sit here and be like, yeah, salute to Randy. Like I have an unwavering amount of optimism. That would not be true. It's all due respect to Randy Brown. I think he's exceptional at what he does. It's hard to know what's unknown right now. And that is when the bullets are flying, will your kicker that you kind of stuck your neck out there and took a day 3 pick on, to your point, that's coveted draft capital. And granted, they had like 5 or 6 day 3 picks this year. So it's not like there was a shortage on them at all, particularly in the 6th round. But obviously there's a risk that comes with it. So I hear you on that. And the Ravens are going to be hoping that track record continues in the next couple of years.
Yeah, and that's also another thing, right? Like I bring this up all the time. I don't think people think about just the difference of environment kicking for a college team is. It's levels of comfort for kicking for an NFL team. Because you go from a college team, there's like 10 kickers on the roster. It's like 5 punters, 3 long snappers. It's a whole squad of just you guys there, right? So you have community, you have friends, all that stuff. You're in college. They're not going to revoke your scholarship because you missed a couple of kicks, right? You might get moved down the depth chart, but it's not the worst thing in the world. And then when you're an established guy, like somebody's going to get drafted, you probably never even felt that pressure to begin with. and it's much more lax. And then you get to the NFL, and it's like, hey, you go from having this whole community of guys your age to play your position to getting to the league, and your punter might be 40 and your long snapper might be 35 and you're like 22. You got nothing in common with these guys. It's lonely.
Straight up. Straight up.
It's lonely, and it's a different game, and the consequences are much more stark. You could lose your job, right? I've always wondered this because, like, you see these guys come over from like the UFL and be super successful, and I'm wondering, I'm like, is it just that they're used to like how like different of an environment it is as a professional versus college? Because so many good. We had K York here, who was excellent at LSU,
Sure.
and then those hash marks get a little bit more narrow. You would think make his life easier, and he stinks. Like, yeah. It's that pressure part of it that I think it's almost impossible to really get an eye on. Like, and I don't know how you even drill that in. It's like either some guys can do it and some guys can't.
And I think that's the key right there. It's yes, the pressure, but how do you manage said pressure? And that's what's so hard to forecast. And that's kind of what I was getting at when I was telling you that how can I sit here and tell you that I have this never-ending amount of confidence just based on track record. No, I'm optimistic, but I don't have this like, bona fide confidence because at the end of the day, the Ravens might not even know until week 1 or when Tyler Loop is lining up for a game-tying or game-winning or pivotal kick in regular season. The bullets are flying. How will he manage that pressure? How will he manage the pressure leading up to week 1? How will he manage the pressure when Lamar Jackson is in 2 minutes and trying to either win a game or, again, tie it up or make maybe it's even at the end of the first half. How will he manage that? You have no idea. And I don't know how you can forecast that other than getting to know a guy, doing your homework, bringing him in. But how much can you actually, like, some of this is a guessing game, right? That's kind of what I'm getting at. Like, some of this is a guessing game. And ultimately that's the situation in this Super Bowl or bust narrative that they find themselves in this era. They are in a situation where they're going to be trotting a rookie, unproven kicker out, and that could come to rear its ugly head, or maybe, just maybe, they'll have a Justin Tucker ridiculous burst onto the scene the way they did, over 10 years ago.
It is interesting too because you talk about pressure, things that you don't have to deal with in the NFL. Week 2, Miles, they go play them all the clips of Myles Garrett jumping over he did it twice he did it against the Colts, and I believe he did it against somebody last year. They're gonna show him those clips and be like, all right, man, that's your problem this week. Like, don't be too predictable on your kick timing, so be out of rhythm and kick towards that guy. Right. And see what happens there. That's also another way that the game's different, right? Just the athletes that are on that line and probably how fast you got. I would love to like talk to a kicking coach one day and just like figure out like truly what are these differences, because you just watch it on TV. It does not feel like it's that different from college to NFL, but there has to be a world of difference. Like, right? Oh, yeah. For like, sure. One is the NFL, but two is just like, look at the transition rate, man. Like, it's like Dustin Hopkins is on this team now. I remember when he was like the most incredible kicker in college that we've ever seen at Florida State. And he was just kind of a guy in the NFL, right? Roberto Aguayo, right? Another guy who was like unbelievable in college and just kind of had a pretty mediocre NFL career. It's fascinating how difficult that transition seems to be, and it's like exclusively for the kickers. Like, punters usually fine, right? Like, but kickers, for whatever reason, that transition is just incredibly difficult. And I'd imagine it's just like way more than we're even thinking about right now.
Right? I can't imagine there's any other league or place of employment in the globe that has a job security as weak and as low as life is in the National Football League. I mean, you got to watch yourself. Nobody is safe. So we've seen that with some quarterback trades over the years. So
yeah, we've seen people try to like create the stability around a position and refuse to cut a guy. And it's like, you're only going to allow so many missed field goals before like everybody loses patience. Like, it's just not, it's not one of the things you can really have much room for error for. Like, there's only 53 guys on the roster. Like, the guy's got to make his kicks.
It's fascinating. It honestly is fascinating to me. The entire league, the way that you earn your keep and it can be taken away from you in an instant is just, I guess that's life, but life in the NFL seems a little bit more intense than life outside of it.
Yeah, it's brutal, right? I mean, like you guys had Dalvin Cook on your team a couple of years ago, and it's like, wow, he used to be the man a year ago,
Dude,
and
I forgot
now,
about that. That's
yeah,
crazy.
and now he's a footnote to what was the 2024-2023 season, right?
That's
Like it was,
wild.
yeah, it's like these guys, like what's Zeke Elliott doing right now? Like I don't
Yeah.
know, like
Yeah.
yeah, it's like it goes so fast in the league, for certain positions here. Um, Anything else about Baltimore that you find interesting? Because we didn't get to touch on the defense, but I imagine the defense is going to be pretty strong here, right? Like I think I don't see much reason for that to have much of a dip from where they were last year.
Yeah, if let's just say this, if they revert back to what they were as a pass defense the first 10 weeks of the season last year, they're going to have some major issues. The big question that I have is can Malachi Starks, their first rounder out of Georgia, who won a national championships, got some great high leverage reps and tape on film during his time in Athens. Can this dude legitimately from day one sort of like carry the load in a sense of being Kyle Hamilton's running mate as a starter? Because you know there was a lot of change that the back end of this defense underwent, not only this offseason, but in season last year. You probably remember some of these moves that were made. Marcus Williams was benched. I mean, that dude's cap hit was through the roof. He had a couple more years left on his contract. Benched. Eddie Jackson, the safety that was brought
Ooh.
in the summer last year. He was brutal, cut, probably that I'm guessing that's it for him in the league. I think I saw he launched a podcast this offseason, so that's typically writing on the wall. And then obviously both those players are no longer with the organization. You lose Ardarius Washington to an Achilles tear during a conditioning session earlier this offseason. He's the undrafted player out of TCU that had really came on big time for them last year alongside Kyle Hamilton when those moves were made and bailed them out and was a big reason as to why the pass defense started to shift in the other direction after week 10. So while there aren't a lot of questions, I mean, of course, there's questions at every level. And quickly, I would just say, okay, when the bullets are flying in the postseason, will you get consistent pass rush? That's a question that I have. Who's going to be Roquan Smith's running mate? Trenton Simpson was demoted last year. They had to essentially resort to a rotation between two players that were special teams guys. And in Malik Harrison's case, he did a little bit of outside linebacker, but then was forced to play weak side alongside Roquan. There was a lot of issues. Some of that may have had to do to the lack of reliability on the back end. But I wonder who's going to be his running mate. There could be a competition this summer with a rookie by the name of Teddy Buchanan and Trenton Simpson. And then, like I just mentioned, is Malachi able to literally hit the ground running as a rookie, whereas a lot of times you're just trying to get the scheme down, you're trying to get the terminology down, you're trying to get the speed down, your assignments down, rather than like the process driven stuff where you can analyze on the fly. Like maybe he has that ability right out of the gate, but those are things that I'm going to be looking for defensively. And then of course with Mike Green slipping to them in the second round, who would have, without those allegations that he dealt with off the field, he would have been a bona fide top 15 pick, I would think. And so are they going to be able to get that kind of pass rush production from him right out of the gate? I expect him to be a rotational player to begin.
Mm-hmm.
But then after that, if they keep adding to his plate, he's going to be a force to be reckoned with. So anyway, it can't get much worse, Quincy, than the first 10 weeks on the back end last year. And I suspect that with some of the new changes to their staff, like a Chuck Pagano, with Jair Alexander showing up at the latter half of free agency, with Nate Wiggins being back for year 2, Marlon Humphrey back as a savvy veteran, Cheeto Awuzie from Cincy and Tennessee with some good reps under his belt. They just got a ton of depth. They got a ton of draft young guys that are in the last couple of years at the cornerback position. So on paper, which is this time of year, you're trying to forecast what it looks like on paper, I think they start off a lot more stout than they did last year.
Yeah, and you mentioned it, right? Like pass rush committees are fun during the regular season, but like when you need a guy to get a sack, that's the problem, right? Like when you just need somebody to just force production. But last thing I'm going to ask you before you head out here. I don't want to put you on the spot and ask you like a yes or no. So you give me a percentage here.
Okay.
What are the percentage chances for you when you look at this team? How do you feel going into this season about this team's ability to get over the hump of the playoffs? And what is the hump for you guys? Like, is it just getting out the conference? Is it winning a Super Bowl? Like, what would feel like a success for Baltimore this year at the lowest level, like the minimum amount you could achieve that would feel like a success this year? And how do you feel about this team's ability to break through versus other ones?
I think another divisional title, first and foremost, not to put on like coaches speak here, but they always say like, let's win the division first.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if you capture the division with the way that Pittsburgh's been rebuilt, we'll see if they're able to, stack health for a full 17 game, 18-week season, especially with a 40-plus-year-old at quarterback and Aaron. But on paper, they've gotten a lot better. Did Cincy's defense get better enough? I can't sit here and tell you that they got significantly better from what they put on tape last year. I know offensively they're gonna, yeah, that's insane if that's the case. By the way,
beef with they have active beef with both their pass rushers right now. They have no defensive interior play. Who are their corners right now? And then they just got rid of their starting linebacker and they replaced them with Demetrius Knight. Like,
well, they better get their stuff together with Trey, because I mean, when you got to your point, when you got the reigning sack getter unhappy August 4th and essentially holding in, I mean, that's a shit show. And then to your point, Shamar probably a little bit behind, I would think, in the install process, terminology, scheme, you name it, being in the building. So whatever, they're still going to put up 30 plus points a game, I would think, or on average, maybe high 20s or whatever. So, but do I expect them to really compete for the division title? I don't know. Maybe they have an easier strength of schedule. If you, by the way, I think Cleveland's got the toughest strength of schedule.
How does that happen every year? How do we finish in last place and always have the toughest strength of schedule? It makes no sense. It makes no sense every year. Like, oh, you're going to get fourth place schedule. We end up playing every tough team in the NFL, like in the first 6 weeks of the seaon. Like every team's in the playoffs.
It's going to be a murderer's row for Baltimore and Cleveland over the first month plus. But I guess to answer your question, and I know you're heading out to camp here, win the division, to play for a Super Bowl, to me, to actually make the Super Bowl, much less win it, but making the Super Bowl to me is a resounding success because it's another step in Lamar Jackson's evolution to play for one. If you've competed for an AFC championship, it's hard to say that, sure, it wouldn't be a waste. Again, now we get back to the Super Bowl or bust side of things, and it's how you define success. But we know how national media is going to cover this, and really media, all three levels, nationally, regionally, locally. If Lamar falls short of a Super Bowl, it's going to be deemed as a failure to many out there. And I guess it's just really just how you define what a failure versus success is in the National Football League. Because bottom line is when the lights were brightest in that divisional round game, he showed up. His second half was superb. 2 turnovers in the first half. Wasn't able to overcome that. Wasn't able to overcome, obviously, a Mark Andrews drop that I think still has a lot of us perplexed 6+ months later. So I guess my answer to you, long story short, get to where you haven't been yet. That's one step further than an AFC championship, and let the chips fall as they may after that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Bobby, let them know where they can find you, get more of you, because I thought this was great.
Dude, for sure. I look forward to doing it again. Feelings, keep growing the channel, man. I've been enjoying following from afar. But gosh, I'm popping up in a bunch of different places these days. We got The Vault, which is our daily podcast covering the Ravens year round, 12 to 1 Eastern. It's my co-host Sarah Ellison and I. So we're thrilled about what we're building there. I got my Bobby Baltimore channel on the side. And then this upcoming Tuesday, the 5th of August at 8 o'clock, we're debuting a new Ravens Collective show. It's a trio panel. Jeff Zaribek of The Athletic, Cole Jackson is a Canadian film breakdown guy who's a Ravens fan, and myself are going to be doing those sort of Tuesday night live streams for the foreseeable future moving forward. So, yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I can be found on social media at Bobby Baltimore, and thanks again for having me on, dude. I hope you enjoy the rest of training camp.
Yeah, I'll try my best, to watch these Dylan Gabriel reps and have a great amount of time, see if Kenny Pickett gets back in team. It's nothing but fun here. But yeah, in all seriousness, it's going to be great. Joe Flacco's return to week 2. We got to do something for that, right? That should be fun if he starts. If he starts. But yeah, that should be fun. But thank you for coming on. Everybody else, thank you guys for watching. Have a great day. Have a better night. Peace.